Okay, well, welcome and good evening. My name's Jude Sullivan, and we are here to present to you an opportunity on improving your health, improving your well-being, and activating your body. So the company that we're representing tonight is called LifeVantage, and we activate health and we flip the switch to help you feel better and to do more. As we go through the content tonight, we'll be sharing some stories that are real. But we do not claim to cure, treat, or mitigate any disease. But what I can assure you is that there are studies that have been done that have shown that this has been done under scientific scrutiny that is peer reviewed and considered to be third party. So it adds to the strength of the stories that you're about to hear. So this is the big question is this idea of when we have a problem with our health, typically we'll go see a healthcare provider. And the reason we go see a healthcare provider is that we think we have a problem. It could be something really uh, an inconvenience, like it's a cough, or maybe we're experiencing a headache or whatever. We don't really consider it serious, or it could be something that's a big deal. In either case, what we do is we go to a healthcare provider, and ultimately happens is there's an attempt to control the symptoms that they're seeing. And so they'll might even ask you to rate your pain using a pain scale score and just kind of get an idea of what it is that they think they're dealing with. And that's all well and good, but if you're treating the symptoms and you ultimately make the symptoms go away, you really don't have an idea what's happening in terms of the disease progression, if indeed there is a disease occurring in the weeds, so to speak. And so I always like to give the example of my father, who, when he was 50, he had a heart attack and ended up having bypass surgery. But then he was put on a regimen of different medications to try to control the symptoms and try to keep the idea of his blood pressure being down or his cholesterol low. So the theory is that the disease won't continue, but it does continue, because a few years later he developed what was considered to be type 2 diabetes, or adult onset diabetes, which is associated with lifestyle. So we have heart disease followed by diabetes. And after that, he developed cancer. And so now it becomes really complex, right? Because we're not just dealing with one organ system or one problem, but there's multiple problems. And if you're seeing different healthcare providers dealing with different problems, how are they coordinating those things together? And you as a person really feel kind of hopeless and helpless. So we're trying to kind of flip the conversation over to, well, what if we got to the root cause of all of those things that are happening simultaneously? If we can address that, then we start to see those things start to regress or maybe even go away over the course of time. And so we're not necessarily having to worry about controlling symptoms anymore, because we're dealing with root causes. And the biggest root cause that we deal with is a condition called oxidative stress. And oxidative stress is just an insult to the cells of our body. We've got like 27 septillion cells in our body. They're specialized into different organs, like what you see on this slide here. But when the cells start to get sick, it becomes a problem. And so what we try to do is think about, if we can fix the cell, then our whole body can be well. So we do this with a process called nutrigenomics. So nutrigenomics is just a fancy term that means the nutrition of our eating can impact the expression of our DNA and our genes. And so we all have what we consider a genetic profile, and some of us say, well, my parents had this, and so it's just inevitable it's going to happen to me too. But I would say, my father got sick, or at least started showing signs of being sick when he was 50. I'm 60 years old right now, and so I'm 10 years past where I should have been sick according to my genes. So we can clearly address how these genes are being manifest, and we can do that through targeted nutrition, in what we call nutrigenomics. Another thing that people will do is they'll try to use supplements. And so supplements, they're not a bad thing, but people use them as substitutes. And so you'll take a vitamin or maybe a multivitamin, or you might take some sort of other supplement thinking that you might have a deficit, but you don't really know that. Or if you do know that and your healthcare provider recommends you take a supplement, you go to the drugstore and then you look at the shelf and you see there's 10 different versions of it. How do you decide which one's the one you're going to use? And if you do start to take it, how do you know when and if it's actually making an impact? And we don't know unless you go back to the care provider to see if anything's been changed. More likely than not, though, it becomes very expensive toilet water because most likely these products are passing through your body. And frankly, a lot of them aren't even really studied at all. So in the supplement world right now, there is not a need for scrutiny in terms of having scientific information to back it up. And that is kind of a two-edged sword because since you don't need the science, we can have it available to us. And, there's a lot of accessibility, which is good. But on the flip side of that, with all that accessibility, there's a lot of people that are, putting a lot of junk in the market. And it's very, very challenging to try to know what is the best thing to do. So what we came up with then through LifeVantage was, well, rather than worrying about taking a supplement, why don't we take it to make it? So our bodies are already well versed in what it is needs to do to help itself, but it just needs a little nudge. And so what we can do is we can use this targeted nutrition, nutrigenomics, to help our DNA be expressed in a very healthy manner rather than having disease start to progress itself. So the flagship product that LifeVantage came to market with is called Protandim NRF2 Synergizer. What this study, or excuse me, what this slide shows is that there's been peer-reviewed journals that have published research on this product, and that it's been looked at in universities throughout the United States and even in Europe. And so to have this third-party validation, what we call validation, is very important because it's not just the company saying that it's good and we've got a good thing going, but there's people who don't really care. They don't have skin in the game saying, yes, this product actually does what it says it does. Now, going back to that drugstore analogy that I gave before, if I'm looking at, say, I have to go look for vitamin C and I see 10 different versions of it, and everybody says, well, ours is the best, and we've got the science to prove it. Well, they haven't really done studies on the vitamin C for their specific formulation. Yes, there's a lot of studies that say vitamin C is potentially beneficial, but to say that their product specifically is the best, they really typically don't have the scientific backing to say it. And so that's kind of a sleight of hand sometimes in the messaging that you see. But with LifeVantage, it actually is validated through third-party research. And what is it that's actually being validated? Well, as I said, we can eat well or we can eat better, and we're certainly recommending that we do that. But to get the type of activation, the term we use is activation of the cell to happen at a level that we're seeing, you'd have to eat 375 oranges each and every day, or say 11 pounds of blueberries every single day, or if you're a supplement junkie, 120 vitamin C tablets every single day. So from a feasibility perspective, it's not. And so we can't really say this is how I'm going to live my life through diet. So I can eat that way, but it's only going to be like a one-to-one thing. So the inflammation and the oxidative stress that comes into our cells is a function of these little things called free radicals. So if we can only remove one free radical with, say, the one orange that I eat, but with Protandim, what I can do is I can address 1 million free radicals every second as long as I have that activator in my system. I think I'm going to want to slide to the side of the activator rather than trying to eat my way into reducing my oxidative stress. And so Washington State actually did a study about a lot of different things about NRF2 activation. And NRF2 activation is the one that reduces oxidative stress. And what they said is that, in their opinion, looking at all the research, the raising of NRF2 is likely to be the most important health promoting approach in the foreseeable future. And indeed, that's what LifeVantage is able to bring to the market with their Protandim NRF2 Synergizer. So this is what Protandim NRF2 consists of. There's 5 herbs. Many of them you've heard before: turmeric, milk thistle, green tea extract, bacopa, and ashwagandha. And together, there's a synergistic effect that you get with the five together. So it's not just a matter of having these five herbs and saying, put it in your diet and you're good to go. It's specifically how are these things put together in a way that gets you to reduce your oxidative stress by 40% in 30 days, as the studies have shown. The NRF2 synergizer helps with natural cellular repair and the rejuvenation process. So all our cells are not the same as the ones that we had at birth. And so they're continuing to copy themselves forward. So we want to make sure that the cell that gets copied is going to be as healthy as we can make it, so that the next copy that is made is going to be as healthy as we can make it. And oh, by the way, there's an animal study that's shown that Protandim NRF2 Synergizer can also increase lifespan by 7%. So who wouldn't want just a better life, but a longer life in the same process? So here's an example of gene expression. So this palette of genes is looking kind of all over the map. Some of the expressed genes are very low, some are high. But once we get into activation, we see that we can optimize the expression of each one. What was once too high is brought down into its optimal level, and what was once too low is brought up into its optimal level. If we look at this as a live culture of red blood cells, you can see how there's a bunch of red blood cells, but they're all over the place. They're overlapped with one another. They kind of clump and stick together. This is an example of a unhealthy profile of red blood cells. What we'd like to see is something like this. And the before and after here is the result of that NRF2 activation we were just talking about. So when we see the red blood cells, as you see on the bottom of the slide here, they're more able to hold on to oxygen to take it to your tissues, and then they can take up the waste from the cells and bring it to your heart and lungs so you can expire that toxic stuff out of your breath. This is another example. So this was a person who had actually some alcoholic fatty liver disease. He was a heavy drinker, and he just started taking the NRF2 Synergizer for 5 months. If you note, he didn't change anything else. He didn't try to exercise more or change his diet or change anything, take medicine, but he did continue his drinking. And so the two indicators that they look at for liver function, AST and ALT, you can see they're in triple digits at the top, which is the pre-reading. And then after 5 months at the bottom, you can see how they're both in the normal range after only 5 months of just doing an NRF2 Synergizer pill, the Protandim NRF2. What we've seen is that this also impacts animals. So animals like us are mammals, and so mammal cells behave in roughly the same way. So if we look at the case of these dogs, which are brothers, they're both the same age, but clearly they look way different. And so this is an example of how activation can impact our aging process. So many of us hear things from your friends or maybe somebody they'll say, oh, I'm 40 years old now. I'm just starting to feel my joints are starting to get old and creaky. And so that we start associating the aging process with the age of our chronological age, but it doesn't have to be that way. And this is a perfect example of that. Here's another one. These are not brother and sister, but they're in the same genetic line. They're both the same age. But Amelia on the right started being activated when she was 4 years old. And so you can see the difference between activation and not being activation. No wonder people, when they're 40, feel like their joints aren't getting better. Because if you're not living well and you're beating yourself up and you're not getting activated, that's what the result is going to be. So after NRF2 activation, LifeVantage proceeded to go through mitochondrial health. And so the Protandim NRF1 activator or synergizer is responsible for helping increase both the number and the quality of the mitochondria in your cell. And why is that important? Because it improves performance of your cells through energy production. Your mitochondria is like the engine of a car. And when that thing is humming, your cell is going to be humming as well. So we want to boost the mitochondria production and their ability to network with one another in the cell. And then the third version of Protandim is the NAD, which supports autophagy. So think of it as cleaning out everything that's considered waste products in your cell. And what we also see is that because of that, the cells become more healthy. It actually improves and boosts our mood, our motivation, and our mental and executive function, our physical energy as well. So we have what's called a tri-synergizer pack, which can energize, neutralize, and revitalize. And what LifeVantage did, they said, well, you know what? Each one of these can do something pretty impressive by itself. So if you see the NRF2 in yellow, the NRF1 in blue, the NAD in green, the circled bars show what kind of an improvement in the DNA expression you'd have if you just took that product by itself. But what they found is what if you were to put all three together, you have a huge impact on what any one of them would express beyond what they would have just taking it by itself. And so the red markers indicate how much of an impact you get for any one of the three synergizers. The lowest being a 38% increase, the highest being almost an 1,800% increase. Pretty impressive. So going back to practical examples again, Jeff Fannin is a neuroscientist, and he's very familiar and very well versed in using brain scans, especially for teenagers who are dealing with ADD and ADHD. And so if you look at the two scans, especially on the left side, it shows how disoriented and how chaotic the executive function and the thinking processes of the brain are. So there's a lot of lines that are kind of all over the place. There's a lot of colors that shouldn't be there. And so he would go through and he would try to use the brain scans to indicate that there was an improvement with his traditional care. And what he found with this particular teenager is after 6 months, nothing was happening. So he decided, well, let's just try the NRF2, the NRF1, and the Axio, and let's see what happens. And after 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, you can see that the scans on the right are quite different. Things have settled down. The colors have gone away. All those crazy lines are gone. And most importantly, both the parents and the teachers that were working with this young man said he is a totally different person. Here's another example, this one using Protandim and Axio, which is our flavored NRF2 drink. And so this is writing or printing, I should say, of a 7-year-old boy on the left without the activators, and then on the right with the activators. Picture's worth 1,000 words. So there was so much good work happening with the synergizers. They thought, well, what other system could we maybe consider? And lo and behold, they found a way to be able to activate their liquid collagen. So now we're looking at a different system. So the collagen system is responsible for a whole bunch of different things in our body. Really, our bodies are held together with collagen. It kind of provides the framework, the structure, the glue that kind of holds everything together. So most collagen products on the market right now, you'll see 2, 3, maybe 4 different collagen peptides. And LifeVantage True Science Liquid Collagen has 10 of them. 10 peptides, 10 collagen peptides. So more different organ systems are able to be positively affected. People will typically take it for their eyes, for their skin, maybe for their nails, things that we could see that you might associate with what we call vanity health. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but people just want to know that they look better. But what we can document, we ask people to take pictures as if you're looking better on the outside, how might you going to look on the inside? What are those organs going to be looking like on the inside? So again, we can document this. This is 3 different slides looking at the density of collagen. The more yellow you see, the more dense the collagen is. And after just 8 weeks, the collagen density has doubled. So here are some pictures that just show this. Many of these people are using collagen as well as the NRF2, NRF1, and NAD tri-synergizer. So you get a powerful punch by coupling the collagen with these other tri-synergizers. So again, whatever you can see on the outside Can you just imagine what your veins might be looking like, what the connective tissue within your organs is looking like when you know that this is happening on the outside? And look at how fast it's happening. For many people, it's 3, maybe 4 weeks. And for people who even continue with it even longer, you see even more dramatic impact. Isn't that incredible? Some people say it's impossible. Somebody's butt will go past that. So many different people have just been so positively impacted. You can just see how much more vibrant they look. Even somebody who looks healthy, they look healthier. It almost sounds hard to believe or hard to think about, but when you see it, you know it's happening. This is only 3 months. Just incredible. And then what about people who are having some real problems? So we know there's a bunch of people who are taking some pretty strong medicines for different disease processes that are happening, and they're being manifested through their skin. So the skin problem that you see is more a byproduct of what's happening on the inside. And so this person was having problems where the medicine that they were using was no longer working for them. And that's not uncommon, where you'll have to take a medicine by having to use more of it, or they might have to change to a different class of the same type of medicine, because your body, since the body recognizes it being foreign, it just doesn't work anymore. So you got to find a different way to kind of trick the body into helping itself. And so this guy, he ran out. They couldn't give him any more. There was no other drugs to give him. And so he was in fear of losing his leg until he had the Tri-Synergizer and the collagen. And 1 year later, look at what that did for him. Can you imagine the sigh of relief in him going from the leg picture on the left to the one on the right? People with autoimmune diseases, I think many people, they think if it's autoimmune, well, I'm born with it. That's me. That's the way I've been. That's the way I always will be. But you can still see a massive impact even with autoimmune dysfunction. Again, pictures are worth 1,000 words. Can you imagine the discomfort of the person with the hand on the top versus what they're feeling now just a year later on the bottom? You can just see the difference in their joints as much as their skin. Vascularity is improved. So again, the blood vessels, both the arteries and the veins improve. And so you tend to see less pooling of blood, especially in the lower limbs. Burn recovery from severe treatments like for cancer and other diseases, again, where you're quote unquote clear or clean from whatever disease you're at, but now you're having to deal with the impact of being treated with all these medicines. Your body still has to deal with that. And sometimes you don't bounce back the way you think you should. It takes time, if it comes back at all. So we could be here for a whole week doing this, so we're not going to take all of your time with that. But there is a whole suite of products that include both ingestibles and topical. And so we want to just kind of segue to the next version of activation here. But before we do that, I want to talk about a little bit of the metabolic devastation that is occurring in our country right now. We came through a pandemic a couple of years ago, but the real pandemic that's happening right now dwarfs that, and it's not even close. And that's what's happening with the metabolic condition of our kids. And so if you look at before, and that would be typically classified anything that would be 30 years ago or before that versus what you see now. Chronic health problems in children is up to 50% of the children in this country. Type 2 diabetes is up from 1% up to 50%, so 1 of every 2 kids. Prediabetes in children is up to 30% from 1%. Childhood autism was up from 1 in 1,500 to 1 in 36. Over 70% of Americans are overweight. And that number is not just going to be 70% overweight, but 70% are going to be considered obese by the year 2030. Childhood cancer is up a whopping 79%, and teens having fatty liver disease exceeds 18%. Fatty liver disease is considered a condition of aging. And so kids aren't even able to live long enough before we're starting to see conditions that were typically associated with being an adult. So the answer that makes sense again for us is activation. And so what we're doing is we're addressing the GLP-1 system. So the GLP-1 is a hormone that affects all of our organs. And so it infects the primary thing is it affects insulin secretion, which is a master regulator of our metabolism. It helps to slow digestion. It suppresses our appetite. It helps to support our cardiovascular health. And it's also neuroprotective from the brain, the central nervous system, all the way down through the rest of our bodies. Now, why is this important? Because semaglutides and liraglutides are being prescribed all over the place right now for the purpose of weight loss and for the purpose of controlling hemoglobin A1C levels. So people who are maybe at risk for developing type 2 diabetes, and they're considered pre-diabetic, or maybe they already are type 2 diabetic and their A1Cs are way, way high. They're starting to see injectables with these semaglutides in pill form, but nobody's talking about the side effects. And so again, with the synthetics that we see, it's something that's considered foreign to our bodies, and our bodies don't always accept them well. They might work really well in many cases, but what we're seeing is that within 2 years, 70% of all people who are being prescribed a semaglutide or a liraglutide are coming off for side effect reasons, or for the fact that they're not losing weight and they're not willing to spend the money on that drug anymore. So again, we can talk about doing this through injectables and the synthetics, the pharmaceutical approach, or we can go back to activation. So if we can activate what's in your body already, your body recognizes it as natural. It's not foreign. Your body's not going to fight it, and your body's going to respond to it. So how does that work with us? So we have a mind-body GLP system, and it's a 2-point system where you take 2 capsules whenever you wake up on an empty stomach, whenever that is in the day for you, and then you wait for 30 minutes. And then 30 minutes later, you take anywhere from 2 to 4 scoops of what we call the MB Enhance, and that's it. It's as simple as that. The MB Enhance, you can mix it in water. We know people mixed it in coffee, and their smoothies, in their yogurt. So it doesn't have to be overly complicated. It tastes really good. It dissolves really well in pretty much any food that you want to combine it with. So what happens when you take this? Well, it's a 2-prong approach. What it does is it activates the receptors that are recognizing the GLP-1. So all of our cells have a GLP-1 receptor, and then it also keeps the GLP-1 from getting broken down in your bloodstream. So the GLP-1, once it's in your bloodstream, it doesn't last very long, and it gets degraded quickly. That's just the way the body works. It's supposed to happen that way. But when we can keep them, the proteins that break it down, from doing that, it lets the GLP go around the loop a little bit longer. And so it has a dramatic impact on your cell's ability to take up and then use the GLP-1. So because of that, we've seen that through a clinical trial, 12-week clinical trial, GLP-1 is increased by 140% on average. Within 8 weeks, the people who are using it lost 9 pounds, and up to 25 pounds in 12 weeks. And the biggest thing that we are recognizing is that the weight loss is not a function of losing your muscle. And that's a big deal. In fact, we're not losing muscle, we're losing what's called visceral fat, which is the fat that's in and around the organs. So it's not the stuff that you can pinch that's between your skin and your muscles. It's the stuff that's inside and that you can't get to. And this is a patent pending product right now. So why is muscle loss that big of a deal? Is it that big of a deal? Well, if you've ever seen somebody who's taken a semaglutide, it's kind of cartoonish, but it's not that far from truth. You start to see people who look like the girl on the left. The eyes are sunken in. They lost all their muscle mass. They've lost a lot of weight, but there's no muscle that goes along with it, as opposed to somebody who goes through activation, they maintain their muscle mass and they lose body fat at the same time. We simply don't know what the effects of losing your muscle is on your health. But for somebody who's age maybe 45 or older, what we know is that it's difficult at best to try to maintain your muscle mass anyway. So if you're having a hard time holding on to muscle and you're losing muscle because you're taking a synthetic, you're really putting yourself behind the eight ball. So again, working together, the GLP-1 production increases by average of 140%. The visceral fat reduction is 27%, and overall body fat is reduced by 5%. And this is a function of your receptors being improved to recognize the GLP-1 and minimizing the amount of GLP-1 that's being broken down by the body. Pretty impressive. So we already talked about the weight loss. People are also recognizing reduced sugar cravings. And again, a picture is worth 1,000 words. I just draw your attention not just to the numbers of maybe inches lost or pounds lost, but the short amount of time that you're seeing these differences. So very dramatic in very short amount of time. And even for people who've lost maybe 5 pounds, you're seeing so many inches that have been lost. It looks like they've lost maybe 2 or 3 times the amount of weight that they say they have. So again, just 3 weeks time. That's only a week. So there is a question, well, if I've been taking one of the synthetics, what happens when I start to take this? And the fact of the matter is that because you've been taking the synthetic, your body thinks that it's getting enough. So it shuts down its own GLP-1 production. So it's going to kind of push you back a little bit before you start to make your own GLP-1. So there's kind of a latent effect before you start to take our mind-body system. So once you've come off, if you've decided to come off the synthetic, it's going to take a little time. And this could be weeks before you start to see an effect with the activator system as well. But it does happen over time. I just draw your attention to this one because this concept of food noise is probably one of the biggest thing where people, they forget that they were hungry, or what commonly was considered a temptation, they're just not even thinking about anymore. They're in different environments that used to maybe trigger the thought of food, or maybe having food or eating something, and those just kind of melt away. And so these moments where we're not really thinking about eating anymore, where we used to always be consumed with eating, has dramatically changed. So as you know, in the United States, food is so plentiful that we don't eat because we need to or because we have to. We eat because we want to. And pretty much we can eat whatever we want, whenever we want, and how much we want. And so this just totally changes the game in terms of how we're being affected from a mental perspective. So who wouldn't be ready for a change at this point, knowing that information? So we're going to switch gears real quick, just to let you know that we do have a business opportunity. You can build an activation business as long as having your body activated. You can do that through sharing your products. You can do it through building and growing a team, or you can lead an entire movement. So LifeVantage is a perfect vehicle for doing this. We're a company that's headquartered in Utah. It's a publicly traded company. It's debt-free. And we do this through a process of what's called direct selling. We are international presence, so we are beyond the United States. This presentation is probably most directed to somebody who's in the US, but we do have markets outside the United States right now, and we're going to be expanding even further in the future. So the net is, how much do you want to make? And so there's a wide range that you can pay attention to. The red area that you see, that column, which is the average monthly commission for the different ranks of this company. The lowest amount is $8 per month to just be a consultant. So just becoming a consultant, that person on average is making $8 per month, all the way up to a presidential consultant who's making over $100,000 a month. and then you see everything in between. And quite frankly, the payouts are more to the middle ranks anyway. So for somebody who's considered average, you're still making quite a respectable monthly income. But who wouldn't want to do that while you're getting yourself activated at the same time? So I said in the beginning, you can either share, you can build and grow, or you can lead. And so we have a bunch of different consultant ranks from the consultant in the middle, or to the left, to the build and grow senior consultant and management consultants in the pink area, and then to lead to become an executive consultant or presidential consultant in the yellow. So if you want, you can just sell product. And so the minimum you're going to make on any product is 10%. And so if you have a number of customers and the total sales that you make exceeds $500, but not quite $1,000, you're going to get an extra 5% bonus at the end of the month. If you make between 1,000 and just under 2,000, it's going to be bumped up to 10%. If you make between 2,000 just under 4,000, it'll be pumped up to 15%. And then if you make over $4,000, you'll get an additional 20%. So that's above the standard 10% you're going to make. So if you like to acquire customers and you're just good at sharing the product and you want people to get better, this is a perfect way to get a little extra pocket money, if nothing else, simply to pay for your own personal consumption of activators. So let's just use as an example with the GLP-1 system, what the income potential could be. So if I have just 4 customers who are using the GLP-1 activator, the income potential for you on a monthly basis would be $106 just for 4 people to be consuming that product. And then you can see as you go up from 8 to 16 and all the way up to 100, how that monthly income will also be magnified. So it doesn't take a lot to make enough. So it's just a matter of knowing, who do you know and how much are you willing to share the vision with us. So if you want to build and grow, you can do that as well. So if you want to do something more than just maybe share the vision yourself, you can maybe share it with a friend who maybe they would want to decide to join you and share the vision with you. And so there's a whole level system that you can be compensated for. And what I would say about this, and sometimes people, they'll look at this, they'll think, well, if I'm making more, then I'm taking it away from the person who's with me. And that's simply not the case. It's what are you doing to help somebody else? The only way you're going to get compensated is by helping somebody else get compensated. It's a total meritocracy, and it's only designed to help somebody help another person. And so the whole system, it's kind of the cliche, all boats rise with a rising tide. So we want to try to help everybody by raising the tide so all the ships can rise together. And then if you do want to get more specific, you can start to develop your own business by developing the people who you've personally enrolled into the business model. And so there's generational matches that occur in addition to all the compensation occurred on the slide that we just previously showed. So all of these payments are layered one upon another. And so you can keep going again and again and again. And then finally, when you get into a total leadership model where you have a large organization, a number of different consultants who are working with you, the company will then take 4% of the worldwide revenues and they share it with everybody who's in the yellow range. And so everybody gets to have a share or different shares that are associated with that 4%, and it's distributed to everybody that's in that level. And so if you know somebody who's selling a Protandim bottle in Japan, that's great. But if you don't know somebody who's selling a bottle of Protandim in Japan, you could still benefit. And that's the beauty of this system. In addition, as you progress, you can earn trips. The trips can be used for just your own personal vacation. Some of them are help you grow. So there's a growth summit. And so the company will pay your expenses to come and learn more about the company and more about the business and help set the stage for you to explode your business even further. So the question then is, do you want to become a customer or would you like to become a consultant? So where should I begin? Well, for us, the non-negotiable, no matter what you're doing, whether you're going to be a customer or a consultant, is really start with the NRF2 synergizer and then add something to that. We believe that the mind body is probably our new best friend. So many people are benefiting from it, and it's just an incredible way to activate yourself. With that in mind, we're in the midst of January right now, and we have a new Activate and Thrive incentive that's going on. And so throughout the month of January, you can get yourself started in a 12-week contest where you can use the GLP-1 system, take pictures, and tell your story. So we call it the 12-week Mind Body GLP-1 Challenge. So there's up to $25,000 in cash and prizes. You can win as an individual. You can be a couple. A couple could be a man and a wife. It could be a son and a father, a mother and a daughter. There's different ways that you can do that, but there's different ways to be paid from, I think it's from first prize down through fifth prize for each of those, for the individual man, the individual woman, and for the couple. So just a real fun way to get yourself started, whether you're a customer or whether you're a consultant. So with that, we're going to call this a wrap. For anybody who's seen this for the first time and you want to know more, please, please, please talk to the person who shared this with you, and they'll be happy to answer all your questions. And with that, we'll call this presentation officially a wrap. Thanks.